Welcome back. So, yesterday we talked about how do you actually pivot, and I went through 4 steps, right? And the 4 steps that we went through were planting, right? The plant stage is where plant, P-L-A-N-T. Yeah, I feel like it sounded like something else. The planting stage is where you get grounded before you grow, right? So it's you when you are propagating a new plant, you put it in water, you put it in soil for the roots to really form. That's what you're doing here. You are grounding yourself in your skill sets, right? So we talked about that yesterday. And then we moved over to scanning. And scanning is when we do the work to understand, okay, now that we know our core skill sets, now that we know in the job history that we have, we can communicate, we can program manage, we can um, do crisis intervention, we can do risk management. Now that we know this about ourselves, how can we, ooh, give me 1 second, actually. Now that we know this about ourselves, we go to the second stage, which is scanning. And scanning is figuring out what is actually in the world. Right? How do I actually use these skill sets? So you do that by reading job descriptions, by doing informational interviews, by listening to podcasts, by going on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and watching the day in the life of the different job titles that you have seen, right? These are all different ways that you can scan because you're not committing to anything. You are simply trying to assess, do I actually like this? Do I understand it enough? And want to move forward, right? Because just because something pays a lot, just because maybe you have the opportunity of being remote, does not mean you should jump from something to another thing and not really know, am I going to be happy here? Because I do think that the beauty of pivoting is that you're able to be a little bit more intentional about your next step. So if you have that, even if you are pivoting because of a layoff, that is still an opportunity to not go back into something that you dislike or something that stresses you out, right? Whether that's a culture, whether that's the actual thing that you're doing, right? I'm speaking from experience. Like after I was laid off, my work culture was so bad. Like I was crying so much, like all the time. So kind of the two main things for me when I was pivoting was I wanted to make sure that I was going into a company in an environment that wouldn't make me feel that way anymore. So that was kind of my scanning to figure out which companies and which industries I would thrive in. And then the second part too was that my whole background has always been in education and workforce development. And I wanted to slightly pivot. And now my career is in change management and in SaaS. And why I wanted that was because I didn't want to pigeonhole myself, right? So even though the reason why my latest pivot was because I was laid off, I did not let that limit me into going back into something that wasn't going to be good for me. Okay. So, plans, we figure out our core skill sets. Scanning, you figure out, okay, what is actually available. And pilot is when you actually do something. So, maybe it's a little project, maybe you do take a course. If you've been following me, you know my feelings about courses, or at least taking a course right away, right? And I don't want anyone to hear me like be anti-education. I just told you my whole career has been in education. So I'm not telling you don't go get educated, but what I'm saying is that that should not be your first step. Your first step should be, hey, how can I experiment this a little bit on my own and even see if I like doing this? And that means, for example, if you want to be a UX designer, that means you watch a few YouTubes and you play around in Figma a bit. And if once you start playing in Figma, you're more curious, then go take the course. But don't make that your first step because what if you don't like it? I don't even know the number, but I'm sure I can even Google how many people start a course and don't finish it, right? Because your heart is not into it. You were just doing it for the money, right? And obviously we working for money, so I'm not saying, don't do things for the money, but if you have a strong why and you know that, hey, I am interested in this is more likely that you won't be wasting your time or your money. So we're planting, we're scanning, we're piloting, and then lastly, we are launching. And launch is when you actually start applying for jobs. You're tweaking your resume, your LinkedIn, your interview talk track, right? Now, even though we've gone through all of this, if you are kind of clear in your core skill sets, and the example I used in the last video was a teacher being really clear in their core skill sets of communication, program management, etc. So it's a mix of soft and hard skills or durable skills and technical skills. Maybe you're like, well, I don't even know how to even think about my skill sets, right? You're like, I've just been doing this for so long, I don't even know. So that's what we're going to talk about here a little bit more, right? Now, part one is going to be about your enduring. My old company used to call it durable skills, and it's more popularly known as soft skills. And this is your core roots. And these are skills that, you're not necessarily learning, in school or anything, but you've picked up over the years, or maybe you're just innately good at it. And these are important because this is what's going to get you through everything. So the first one is cognitive flexibility and adaptability. Now, this is the ability to gracefully adjust your thinking. Um, so your thinking or your strategy, right? When you have new information or something is changing. So, for example, the hot button right now is AI. Now, you can have a lot of valid reasons why you don't want to use AI, or you don't think AI is ethical, or you find that AI is not great for the environment, all valid. However, also understanding that if you're working in certain sectors, if not all sectors at this point, people are introducing AI into workflow, right? And the famous quote is, "AI won't replace you. The person using AI is replacing you." So being adaptable, being cognitively flexible, is saying, at least let me learn this thing, and let me not be an ostrich, right? So an ostrich puts their head in the sand, but the thing is that this thing is still happening around you. So if you're gonna put your head in the sand, then people are just gonna run over you. And what does that leave? Where does that leave you? Right? So that is where cognitive flexibility comes in, right? So um you may already have this, right? If you've ever had to juggle shifting deadlines or learn a new process, learn a new technology quickly. And what you want to do right now, if we use the whole, and that's like going back to the framework of earlier, planting is you have evidence that you've done this before. Scanning and piloting, right, is you are seeing where the industry is being disrupted by this technology. So, can you do a project outside of your comfort zone? For example, let's say you are someone who has to write a lot of emails. Can you use AI to help you write an email? Let's say, like in my old job, I was in talent acquisition. So we were answering the same questions over and over and over again. So we built a chatbot. We built a chatbot which scraped all the data. We reviewed it, human in the loop. We reviewed it to make sure that the answers were correct. And then when someone would message us, automatically they would get a response. And then the way we built it was that if the person said after maybe two times that this was not the response they wanted, then it'll come to us. That saved us over 70% of our time. Like we cut down, we went from 300 messages a day to maybe about I don't know, like 40 or something, right? That is a huge time save. That's what companies want, right? So that is what I mean by understanding cognitive adaptability, planting, scanning, piloting, right? And then launching, obviously. We launched the chatbot. And this is what, when you read a lot of job descriptions and they say thrive in fast paced environments, this is what they're talking about. Are you able to pick up new information? So that's the number one durable skill, cognitive flexibility and adaptability, which you can also call like curiosity. Number two, emotional intelligence. I love to say that I know like the common saying from like the CEO of NVIDIA is, AI won't replace someone using AI will. I feel like yes, true, but also the person who goes to therapy is gonna replace you, okay? Because emotional intelligence is needed more than ever in this workforce. Because as we lean more and more into technology, the only thing that will differentiate you and really make you stand out is your human ability. The more human you can be, the more you can connect, the more you can empathize, the more you can communicate and say like, yo, I see you, I hear you. And you can adapt to the situation, the better you be. Because at the end of the day, AI, at least the way that we use it for the most part, an LLM, is simply gathering data. Like it's a great research tool and a great partner, but it's not thinking. It doesn't understand the emotion in the room. You do as a human, right? And if we let our ego come in the way, if we let pride come in the way, or if we're just in our own little aloof world and we don't have any self-reflection, it's not going to work. But the person who knows how to use AI and who has some emotional intelligence, they're going to win because that human connection, top notch, right? Manage your emotions, recognize them in others. That's your ability. So if we go back to the idea of planting, right? That first exercise from the previous video is your ability to communicate, collaborate, and offer insightful feedback. That's your EQ at work, right? Then scanning is you look at roles in team leadership, user experience and design, client management, my job, change management. And that's where you're understanding human motivation. And that no AI can do that, right? And then if you wanted to pivot into these things, then what a pilot or a launch would look like is like you're leading a small team, you're mentoring junior colleagues, you're mentoring someone who's joining the team. So you're proving your ability to guide or inspire others. Or maybe right now, I'm just going to keep using AI because I work in tech. I'm in AI all day, and it is obviously the zeitgeist of the day. Let's say maybe people in your team are unwilling to learn AI. You teach them. You save your company some time, some money. It doesn't mean that you have to stay at your company, but what it means is that you're teaching yourself. Do I like doing this thing? Do I get frustrated when people ask me questions? Am I able to communicate, collaborate, etc.? And if you can, find you the new job, right? So we've gone over cognitive flexibility and adaptability or curiosity, emotional intelligence. Number 3 for our soft skills is creativity and originality. There's so much chaos in the world right now. And really, the only thing that's going to set us apart is our creativity, right? And just pulling from ourselves and saying, like, what can we do? I just finished reading Matriarch by Tina Knowles, Beyonce and Solange's mom. And so much of the book is about leaning into her own creativity to make work, right? Um, whether it's hair, clothes, whatever. And also that creativity comes from her legacy, right? And we all have such rich histories in our families, the things that like we are like, oh, this is whatever, but we bring it to another audience and it's like, oh my gosh, wow, you know? So think about connecting dots that no one else sees and approaching problems from a fresh perspective. This will really give you an edge that you might not see now, but if you do that planting exercise, right? You realize that maybe you found clever workarounds for a recurring problem. That's creativity. Maybe you're always able to explain things in ways that other people can't. That is creativity, right? So apply this to a new area. For example, if you're in marketing, right, experiment with new tools to see, hey, what can I come up with? What new campaigns? What new angles? Lean into nostalgia, you know? Your originality is top 10, so use that. And then you can launch that by creating new projects and then talking about that online, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever your people are, right? Or wherever you're trying to go. And my last one, I've mentioned this a ton of times, but communication and persuasion. So much of working is sales. Whether your role is sales or not, so much of working is sales. So your ideas are only as good as your ability to articulate them, right? And it's about telling a compelling story, whether it's one person or to 1,000, and whether that's through oral communication, whether that's through written communication, whether that's through video and imagery, right? So think about all the emails that you've sent, all the presentations, all the decks that you've built, right? That is communication, right? And then again, going back to scanning, this is a great time to look at how can my communication translate. We are super into the digital marketing world right now. Again, back to AI and prompt engineering. No one wants AI slop. So if you're a great communicator, you can help shape that. And that means that you're able to pivot into a new world, into more money, into making sure that you always eat because you're using your core skill sets and you're adapting with it, right? And I think that goes into like leadership and social influence as well, right? So just going through all of them again, it's around cognitive flexibility, emotional intelligence, creativity, communication, and persuasion. And that kind of all wraps up around like leadership and social influence. So those are our soft skills or our durable skills. Now let's get into emerging hard skills. So these are technical skills that you might want to lean into, right? And you can lean into it by doing projects, taking on extra things at work, or obviously taking a certification. If you're going to take a certification, I'm begging you, please explore free options first, whether that's a community college, whether that's a program that's trying to help people, things of that nature, right? So what is a hard skill? Hard skill is a teachable skill that's in high demand, right? Right now. And that's right now, that's AI, machine learning literacy. So that means you want to, if you have any background in research, you want to see way or data, you want to see ways that you can use this and support yourself. Data analysis and interpretation. Data is everywhere, and data is the backbone of so much of what we do. Like when we even talk about um like social media and what's available to you, what you're seeing, etc. That's all data. Marketing is all data. Communication is all data, right? Because we are using the data to or data. Do you say data or do you say data? Let me know in the comments. You're using that to inform and to sell to other people. Because as I mentioned earlier, everything is sales, right? And as I mentioned, I think I mentioned it in this video, when I was pivoting into my latest role, I was thinking to myself, where is the world going? And I eventually ended up trying to get a job in fintech, which is financial tech. So think about like Stripe, Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, etc. Or SaaS. So SaaS is like Netflix, AWS, anything that you don't have to any technology you don't have to download on your computer, but you can still access. And the reason for that is I was like, this is the two places that the world is going, right? So think about where the world is emerging into in terms of technology and especially cloud computing, Google Docs, Slack, Trello, right? And think about how can you step into this. And again, this is where I will say all these companies usually give some form of certification because a certification is a way for them to not only make sure people know how to use your tool well and evangelize their tool, but also as a marketing tool. So you can go take a course, right, in like Airtable certification, right, which not only makes you more attractive to get hired at Airtable, but it also makes you attractive to literally so many companies like Nike, Delta, AWS. Like there's so many companies that use Airtable. So if you already have that skill set, which you got for free because you went on their website, you can attain that as well, right? UX UI design principles, again, learning how to use these tools, right? I just mentioned all these tools above. As an end user, someone has to be able to navigate that easily. So your job is to make sure you're asking questions and supporting them in thinking clearly on how to build this. And then last but not least, a hard skill that is obviously emerging is cybersecurity. As the world gets more and more online, people want to make sure that their information is safe. There's more risk out there without information, and that's the new warfare, if you will. So if you have attention to detail, if you can think through processes in a very methodologic, I don't know. I'm like, huh, is that a word? If you can methodically, I don't know, I'm tripping up on the word, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Correct me in the comments. Tell me what word it is. But if you can think through things and you have a method to the way you do things, and those are your core strengths, cybersecurity is key for you because you can pull out those processes, right? And you can do things like you can learn about phishing, you can learn about password security, online privacy, CompTIA, so many things you can get into, right? And then this is where you start creating projects. You start talking about it online, right? Because the more you talk about things, what you're learning, what you're doing, what you're confused by, the better, right? So I say all this to say that pivoting is possible, but pivoting is not a leap, right? Pivoting is systematic. It's strategic. It's a series of small intentional steps that if you do them daily, you're gonna look back in like 2 or 3 months and be like, oh, I'm ready. You're gonna feel super confident. You're gonna be talking the language of where you want to go, right? Because you've been able to identify what you're already good at, aka your planting stage, right? Then get curious and scan for what's possible. Then you run a small pilot for the projects before you go all in and you lock in, and then you're ready to launch with confidence. And people are going to see your work and you're going to get hired, right? So if you're waiting for permission, this is the permission, right? And if you are looking for more help and you're like, I have a unique case or I'm still stuck, whatever the case might be, reach out to me. I'm going to put my link in the description below. Reach out, let's work together and get you moving on this pivot. We're supposed to change our careers like 5 to 7 times, and I've already changed mine five. So, and I've been working for about 14 years now, right? Um, and there's more change to come. And the only way we can stay ahead is by leaning into it, right? So if you're determined to make six figures, it's possible for you, or even just increase. You're already making six figures, but you want more six figures, right? It's possible for you. But I will say don't just chase a salary, build the skill stack that commands that salary. So people are coming to you, right? You're not too late, you're not too old, you're not too this, you're not too far behind. Stop that talk track. You're starting a new line, you're starting a new thing, and you can do it. I know you can do it. I've done it. So many people have done it. I've helped over 900 people do this. You can do it too. Okay. You got this, right? I want you to write down 3 transferable skills that you've overlooked. Watch this video again if you have to. Watch my previous video. I want you to DM one person in the field that you want to explore and ask about their path, ask about how they got there, reference it. Say, like, hey, I looked at your LinkedIn and I saw that you did this and this. How did you jump from here to here? Do not ask for a job. Let them talk about themselves and learn from that, right? And then audit your past skills for measurable impact. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just drop a comment and I'll probably do a video on that. And then by you doing this, you're able to start rewriting your story in the new terms of where you're going and the impact that you've had. I'm going to keep talking about this because I love talking about this. And I think that we owe it to ourselves that if we need to work for money, we need to do it in a way that keeps improving us and makes us happy and makes us whole. Right? Because if we have to show up for 8 hours, whatever hours a day to someplace for 5 days a week, might as well get paid well for it and not lose our minds, right? So follow this channel. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe for more of these. Drop in the comments your thoughts on this, your questions, any future. Well, I guess if you ask me questions, that'd probably be future videos, right? So what questions do you have? Where are you stuck? Where are you trying to pivot from? I can do a whole pivot journey for you. Let me know. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.